Since its inception in 1945, the United Nations has been pivotal in maintaining global peace, security, and development. However, recent years have been increasing calls for reform from BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, and other global South countries. These nations argue that the UN disproportionately favors Western interests and fails to represent emerging economies and developing countries. This video explores the concerns of BRICS nations, delves into structural issues within the UN, and discusses proposed reforms for a more democratic and inclusive institution. If you are passionate about global governance and international politics, don't forget to like and share this video. One major criticism from BRICS nations is the perceived bias in how the UN and other international bodies address human rights issues. For instance, China and Russia are frequently scrutinized for their human rights records, such as China's actions in Xinjiang and Tibet, and Russia's treatment of the LGBTI community, while similar issues in Western countries often receive less attention. This double standard is particularly evident in the treatment of refugees. European nations have provided substantial support to Ukrainian refugees, yet refugees from conflict zones like Syria, Afghanistan, and Somalia face harsher conditions and less support. The disparity extends to the Israel-Palestine conflict, where Israel's retaliatory measures often receive muted criticism compared to the swift condemnations of attacks by Hamas. The BRICS nations argue that global governance frameworks, including the UN, the World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund, are disproportionately dominated by Western powers. These institutions often reflect a post-World War II power structure that no longer aligns with the current global economic landscape. Leadership roles in the IMF and World Bank have traditionally been held by individuals from Europe and the United States, perpetuating Western dominance in global finance decision-making. Geopolitical rivalries, particularly involving Russia and China, have further intensified these concerns. Western actions such as sanctions are often perceived as efforts to limit the influence of BRICS nations on the global stage. For example, China faces significant challenges from the West over its policies in Xinjiang, Hong Kong, and South China Sea. Sanctions imposed by the United States and the European Union are viewed as attempts to curb China's growing economic and geopolitical power. What do you think about the role of sanctions in global politics? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Additionally, Western geopolitical strategies such as the formation of military alliances like the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue and AUKUS are seen by BRICS nations as efforts to contain their influence. These alliances reinforce the perception that BRICS countries are being marginalized within the current international system. BRICS nations argue that Western-dominated institutions impose stringent conditions on financial aid and development assistance that can undermine their economic growth and sovereignty. These conditions often prioritize Western economic and political interests over developmental needs of recipient countries. A common criticism is the enforcement of austerity measures that emphasize debt repayment at the expense of public spending on essential services like healthcare and education, thereby impeding sustainable development. Another contentious issue is the allocation of voting power within the IMF, which remains heavily skewed in favor of Western countries, with the United States holding the largest share. Despite China's GDP being the world's second largest, its voting power in the IMF remains disproportionately low. BRICS nations argue that this does not accurately reflect the global economic landscape, where emerging economies play an increasingly crucial role. BRICS nations also contend that global climate change policies are often shaped by Western countries without sufficient consideration for the developmental needs of emerging economies. They argue that these policies sometimes place disproportionate burdens on developing countries which are still working to overcome poverty and industrialize. While Western nations advocate for stringent emission reductions, BRICS countries emphasize the need for financial and technological support to transition to greener economies without stalling their growth. The COVID-19 pandemic exposed significant shortcomings in global governance, further fueling calls for reform. BRICS countries criticized the World Health Organization and other international bodies for what they perceived as a biased response favoring wealthy nations. Issues such as vaccine hoarding by richer countries and the slow distribution of vaccines to poorer nations highlighted the need for more equitable global health policies. The UN was founded in 1945 by 51 countries committed to peace and security through international cooperation. The Security Council, with its 5 permanent members, United States, United Kingdom, France, Russia, and China, plays a crucial role in maintaining international peace and security. The General Assembly serves as a forum for all member states, allowing for diverse international representation. During the Cold War, the UN often became a stage for ideological conflicts between the Western Bloc, led by the United States, and the Eastern Bloc, led by Soviet Union. Despite these tensions, the UN played a crucial role in peacekeeping missions and decolonization efforts, significantly expanding its membership as many African and Asian countries gained independence. One of the most significant proposals for reforming the UN is to expand the permanent membership of the Security Council to include countries like India, Brazil, and South Africa, which have significant regional influence and economic power. This change aims to more accurately reflect the geopolitical realities of the 21st century. Another suggestion is to strengthen regional organizations such as the African Union, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, and the European Union. These regional bodies could address local issues more effectively while coordinating with a central global organization for broader international matters. Experts have proposed the creation of a new entity called the Democratic Nations, featuring a bicameral legislative system to better represent countries based on population size and influence. The DN concept aims to address the democratic deficits in current global governance structures by establishing a system that includes both government representatives and elected representatives accountable to the global population. The idea of a World Parliamentary Assembly, which aligns with the DN proposal, have gained support over the past years. The European Parliament has repeatedly called for the establishment of a UN Parliamentary Assembly, arguing that it would increase the democratic profile and allow global civil society to have a direct role in decision-making processes. The WPA would initially act as an advisory body to the UN General Assembly, with the potential to evolve into a more powerful entity with legislative capabilities over time. The dissatisfaction of BRICS and other global South nations with the current structure and functioning of the United Nations highlights the need for comprehensive reforms aimed at making the UN more democratic and inclusive, addressing issues of Western bias, representation in global governance, geopolitical rivalries, and the disruption of resources during global crises like the COVID-19 pandemic are crucial for fostering a more just and representative international order. proposals for expanding the Security Council, strengthening regional organizations, and establishing new global governance structures like the Democratic Nations and the World Parliamentary Assembly offer potential pathways for reform. While challenges remain, these reforms hold the promise for a more equitable and effective United Nations that truly represents the diverse interests and perspectives of its member states. If you found this video insightful, please like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell to stay updated on global issues. Thanks for watching.